Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Eastern Ace Tech Talk on social media for social justice. I'm joined here by Tibise Hernandez, Assistant Director of Employer Relations at the University at Albany, State University of New York. Tibi is a two-time alum of the institution with a BA in English and a master's in curriculum development and instructional technology. She's also currently a doctoral candidate in the Education Theory and Practice program. And in her role at UAlbany, Tibise conducts the on-campus interview process. Although a lot of her work revolves heavily around employers, she's also frequently used as a sounding board for UAlbany students and serves as an advisor for student organizations, a sexual assault prevention trainer, and a certified implicit bias trainer. Wow. Tibise has a special interest in issues of diversity and inclusion, and especially focusing on first-gen college students. I reached out to Tibi for this conversation earlier in the summer because of a great series of social justice campaigns she's been coordinating online for her office. Many of us in career services are trying to figure out how our offices can be more involved in the big issues affecting our students today, from anti-Black racism to gender discrimination. So there's a lot to learn from Tibi's experience doing just that. As we get started, we're going to have a little bit of discussion, then open it up for a broader Q&A session. So please make sure to put any questions or comments you may have in the chat box as we go along. So to get started, Tibi, maybe could you tell me about the context when you had the idea to begin these social justice campaigns online?
Absolutely. So thank you so much, first of all, for having me, Elise. It's a pleasure to be here to talk about this very important topic. And just to kind of give people a little bit of background, I work for Noah Simon at the University at Albany. As we mentioned, we are a team of 9 of us. And basically, we have a very open, very collegial relationship, generally caring relationship where we feel like we can have really great discussions. Um, COVID hit, and everyone's at home, and then a couple months later, the George Floyd situation happened, and all of a sudden, it started feeling like, for me personally, and I can kind of speak to some of my other colleagues, like we were on different planets. Certain people in our team felt, you know, very hurt about what was happening, didn't know how to express that. The term professionalism became something hard to uphold because we didn't want to talk or express rage as to what was happening. And then this thought process of nobody was bringing it up as well. So one of our colleagues actually, George Floyd's video came out on a Monday. On that Thursday, one of our colleagues sent out an email to our entire department, just stating, that they were very concerned and very sorry for the things that were happening, and expressed specifically and said, to my Black and brown colleagues, I am so sorry. And it was like somebody broke through that wall, and it almost felt like, okay, this is being acknowledged. Thank God someone's actually acknowledging it. So that was on a Thursday. Then on a Friday, our vice president for student affairs tweeted out, white silence equals violence. And I said, game on. If our VP is acknowledging this on social media, then I definitely can acknowledge it through our departmental social media. So I put up a very, very simple post. And can people view my screen right now
I
or
can see
no?
it.
Okay, so great. So I'll actually scroll down and kind of just share. There's been a lot. But the first post was this post. So during these dark times, we want to send love and light to our campus community. We see you, we hear you, we feel you. So that's really what started it off, right? And after that happened, our team came together and had a staff meeting that Tuesday where our Black and Brown colleagues, and we're about 50 Black and Brown white in our office. We basically unloaded and we were given the opportunity to talk about our experiences on campus, what we've dealt with in terms of discrimination, where we haven't felt safe in our communities. And it was a 2-hour conversation that was, like, I think one of the hardest ones that we've ever had. But that allowed us to really set our priorities on what we wanted to do moving forward. And we just started talking about the fact that we needed to acknowledge that these events were happening for our students, because career development is life development. And how are we supposed to say that we are developing our students in dealing with a diverse workspace if we are not addressing things that are happening in our world that affect them? So that's a little bit of the context. Now, other departments in our university did not necessarily go in that route. And what was interesting was that our career office was being touted by our students and tagged by our students as thank you for acknowledging this. And we got so much positive feedback from our student population when we started posting.
That's great. And these look really good. So do you need like a graphic design background? How did you make these turn out so nice?
Okay, so no, you do not. Not need a graphic design background at all. So I'll share like this one. Let me see. I did a different playlist. Let's see. Okay, so I was doing something called the Quarantunes playlist because I am super corny and I think that it's funny. So I was doing a playlist of jams that I felt were, like Stuck With You, the Know Your Worth, like Footprints. I was doing like fun stuff like that. And then I decided, hey, if we're going to go social justice, let's do a social justice playlist. This was already a template in the program called Canva. Okay. So you saw the previous one. I literally did nothing. Like for this one, I did nothing except put the title, put this title, and put in the different songs that I wanted to highlight for that week. This graphic was already there. Everything was already there. Then I just switched some key colors to highlight our school colors. That's it. Literally all I did for this one. So then when I decided that I wanted to go more social justice route, I was like, okay, how can I switch up the graphic? I found these graphics on Canva. Again, change some strategic colors into our school colors. And voila, we have a very nice and clean post on social media. So it's really not that difficult, especially with Canva. They already have pre-created templates. And if you just put in your colors, your institution's colors, it can be super easy. And trust me, no one is the wiser that you use the template. No one.
That's great. And so when you were doing this, were you using particular platforms on social media or were you going across platforms?
Absolutely. So Instagram is the main platform that I found our students to be on. But we also have a Twitter account, a Facebook account, and a LinkedIn group that we post to. So Instagram is for students. Twitter I was finding it was more faculty and staff that would find us there, and some parents. And then Facebook, I jokingly say, is for the parents and the aunties. I consider myself an auntie, so not for the students. And then our LinkedIn was where our employer partners are, where our colleagues from different institutions are. So I didn't change the content much. I would change maybe the message, so like the attached message or comment a little bit, but everybody's going to take these messages differently. There are certain things that I would share on Instagram, for example, that I wouldn't share on LinkedIn just because it was more fun and kind of funky and not really for that audience. So you tailor it to your audience, but I didn't make anything new or extra in terms of the graphics. I just shared it on the different platforms, but those are the main ones.
Okay. And since this is social media, like, how did
Mhm.
that social aspect work? Where did you get the information from? Who did you connect with?
Okay, so a couple things that we really have to be mindful of is that when we were creating this thought process of putting our values on our social media, we know that there are trolls. This is social media. Everybody's going to have an opinion. So we wanted to make sure that all the content that we put out that wasn't, like fun, like if you don't agree with my song choice, that's fine. I'm a child of the 80s and 90s. So yeah, it's cool. That's not contentious. But the minute that I started going into places like this, and I'll show you, because this was my most talked about one. Uh, Things like the gender times race pay gap, and I started putting up information like the 54 cents to the dollar for Latinas, 62 cents for African American and Black women, the 57 cents for Native American women, and the 79 cents to a dollar for white women. Now, when I start posting these things, you're going to have people that do not believe that the wage gap is even real. Okay. And how do you combat that? Uh, People in the comments started saying that. And I said, listen, we are open to retracting any information if you provide us with data that shows us better information. So I'm a doctoral student, and not to toot my own horn, but I can figure out when a student is giving me like a link to a website, I already know that it's probably not going to be something reputable unless it's a reputable website. And they're not going to find a lot of counter arguments to some of these things that are proven in some regular websites. So you have to make sure that all your evidence is coming from, reputable, research based, peer reviewed. I can't stress that enough. Peer reviewed articles from reputable journals. I had a student send me a white paper, and a white paper is basically a research document that has not been published from Harvard. A student created a research project trying to disprove the wage gap, and guess what? No one picked it up. No one published it. Probably because it's not valid, right? It wasn't a robust enough study. So you have to be open to retracting your statements if somebody gives you better data. And I use the platform as an educational platform. That's always what you want to rely on. Okay, so this is not you, your opinion. This is bipartisan. You are putting out information as an educational entity on research-based information. And make sure that you cite your sources. So if somebody comes for you, you let them know this is where we found the sources. You can look it up yourself and just be open to that. And then at some point, people get saucy and then you block them. Pretty simple. So just so that people understand that social media can be a contentious place. So those are my best strategies and tips if you want to go this route to do it from that research mindset. I don't know
That's
if that
actually really good advice.
I don't know if that
Yes.
answers the full question. Okay.
Oh, I think the other part was about who you've connected with, who's really engaged with this campaign.
Right. So when COVID started and I took over social media, um, there were other offices that were doing great work already, keeping our student body informed. So our counseling services, academic support services, our graduate school. So what I started noticing is that when I was putting out these campaigns, they would reshare my information, share my information on their stories. So I started doing the same for information that they were sharing. And then student organizations, like I said, our student body, when we started really attacking social justice issues, those groups that traditionally are cultural started also tagging us and sharing us. And some that are not so cultural, like the weightlifting club, which I still appreciate them. You Albany Weightlifting really like shared our stuff consistently and liked it. So I love who's ever behind their social media. But you start making those connections, and once you start resharing other people's information, it actually becomes easier for you because it's less content that you actually have to create, because you can actually copy their post, and there's ways to do that that are very simple. There's a repost app that you can download that's free, where you take the link of the post and then you can repost that link on your own social media. So once you start that symbiotic kind of marriage and relationship with those offices, it's less content that you have to create. It's still relevant information that you're putting out there.
Okay. Well, thank you. And I want to make sure that we have some time for broader discussion. And we've gotten a couple of questions in the question box. If anybody else has questions, you can put them there or the chat. So let's see, to start out with, got a couple questions from Phil. So when you were thinking about these campaigns, did you have set goals for followers or numbers, or were you mostly focusing on the content?
I'm mostly focused on content. I feel like when you start focusing on the numbers, uh, first of all, this stuff is going to live on our Instagram forever. So people are going to be able to find the information. And the great thing about social media is that after a couple months, if you wanted to repost the same information but repackage the content, you can. So for us, when we discussed how we were going to approach it, it was 1,000% about content.
And did you have sort of free range to post, or did you have a policy that you had to check the content with somebody before releasing it?
Right. So our institution is a decentralized social media model. So each department kind of does their own thing. Again, kudos to Noah Simon, who is amazing and trusts his staff. Noah completely 100% trusted me in the content that I was sharing. So I wasn't super restricted. I know that that's not the case at every institution. But again, if you can argue from an educational standpoint, hopefully people will be on the right side of things morally, and will allow you to do the work. But yeah, I had pretty free reign, not gonna lie.
And do you have any other advice for people who might be thinking about a campaign like this but have less leadership from the top in terms of engagement with social media?
I think that honestly, if it's not social media, thinking about where else do your values show up, right? How does your population see and feel you as an office? Because it's not just doing the social media posts and then going out there and not having any programming that addresses some of these inequities, right? So you want to think about what is your office's views on some of these issues. And if people aren't talking about it and people aren't discussing it in any way that's relevant, then it might not be top priority. And you might have to be that change agent. And you have to ask yourself and reflect, how comfortable are you with being that change agent? How comfortable are you with pressing these issues? Because what we're seeing right now is that because we haven't pressed these issues in the past, they're hurting us. They're hurting our communities. And again, think about what I said. Career issues are life issues. If you do not know how to engage with diversity, outside of work, how are you going to know how to do that inside of work? So it's really about you being ready to articulate why this is important if you don't have that support from the top. And if they still don't want to give you that support through social media, figuring out what other avenues and what other ways is it going to seep out to your student population that this is something that's important to you.
I love that. Okay, so a couple more technical questions.
Sure.
Did you use Hootsuite or any sort of social media posting platforms, or did you post everything individually from your phone or your computer?
Okay, so my phone got a lot of work. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. There was a lot of work on my phone. We had an issue because the person who did our social media before, unfortunately, they left and then we didn't have access to our Facebook page. And if you know anything about Instagram, in order for you to post through like a Hootsuite and things like that, you have to have your Facebook and your Instagram connected as a business. It was a lot. It was many, many months of me trying to figure out how to undo that because I had to build a completely new Facebook page and figure out how to link it. I literally basically reported the old page for copyright infringement. This is how crazy it got. I'm not lying to y'all. and then Facebook deleted the page, but now I had to figure out how to get the new page unlinked, this deleted page unlinked from my Instagram account. It took a lot. I can go offline and talk to you about how I managed to get that done. But because of that, I was posting things one at a time from my phone. And that was very labor intensive. But remember, this is COVID. My job is assistant director for employer relations. Our employer relations, those first couple of months was like non-existent. We were about to go into on-campus interviewing season. So this really took over, my job and what I was doing previously, because that kind of slowed down. So I had more time to create this content. What I did was I made a calendar for myself. So I have 2 days a week that I blocked off for social media creation. So I only spent that time making bulk making tons of content for the campaigns. And then on my calendar, I would just put reminders to myself of when I wanted to post. And I checked my insights on Instagram to figure out when my audience was most active. And great for me, it wasn't at 8 o'clock in the morning because they're students. It was more around that like 6, 8, 9, sometimes even 10 o'clock time frame. So I created a schedule. I made a schedule for myself. Now we're exploring, since it was again crazy for me. Now we're doing the work to figure out what's the best way to post. But it honestly wasn't that hard, and it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad once you make a schedule for yourself.
Okay, well, the final question that we had was about how you used the data you collected on views and reshares to inform your decision making about content selection and timing. So is there anything else on that you would want to add, or have you sort of covered the way that worked?
I think that moving forward, what we want to utilize is figuring out just through the data, because I was really concerned mostly with follows and unshares in the beginning, and then after watching several YouTube influencers, because I needed to get myself aware about how this social media game works. So I started looking on YouTube and looking at other places, like, because I was freaking out when like 3 people unfollowed us. I was like, no, why is this happening? And then I realized, like, okay, no, don't focus on that. Focus on the likes, focus on the engagement, and try to get as many people as possible to follow the account. Don't worry so much about the unfollows. So one thing that I will say that's important is put your Instagram or whatever your handles are in your email. So that way, whenever you're emailing anybody in your institution, you're prompting them to follow you on those social media accounts. We use Handshake. So at the bottom of every one of our Handshake blasts, we put want to learn more, follow us on our socials. And we would put that there. We're trying to figure out our website is really, the back end of it is still pretty ancient. But if you can post your feed on your website, I would definitely suggest doing that as well. And that increases engagement. And then in a perfect world, what I would love if I had more time is to kind of cross-reference who is engaging with us in our social media, so that way I can send targeted emails to those groups of people, like maybe trying to figure out if they're posting about freshman year, maybe, you know, those are all freshmen, and I can create like a little freshman group that I could target, different things like that. But the data right now, aspects of it, because I've been consumed with the content creation and the posting, hasn't been something that I've really delved into. And now that the fall is coming back and employers are definitely knocking on our door and I have to do my main job, it's something that we actually just had a retreat and talked about how are we going to use social media data. So once I come up with what we do, I would love to get back on here and kind of share with you guys what we ended up doing and with the data. But this is going to be something moving forward that is not going to be a one-off. This is not a trend for us. Okay, that's the other thing. Like, I know we said social justice, like this should be a habit that changes. This should be something that we consistently talk about. This is not just something that while Black Lives Matter is happening, we're going to do. So we're going to continue to think about what are other ways that we can feature workplace discrimination, and then also keeping it positive. I did the sandwich effect for everybody. You showcase a problem, right? But then you showcase a solution, and then you showcase an organizational solution, but also how students can be a part of their own monitoring of that issue and their own solution making in that issue. So the campaigns were not just highlighting workplace discrimination in various areas, because we covered LGBTQ, we covered disability, we covered international students. So when everything was happening with international students, I switched the campaign for that week and focused on all international students and the benefits that they bring to our country because of everything that was happening to try and stop international student enrollment in higher ed. So I made a conscious decision to really showcase what can organizations do to stop workplace discrimination, and what can we do to identify it, call it out, and make it harder for people to discriminate against us if we're from a marginalized identity in any way.
Honestly, I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you so much, Tibby, and thank you for everybody who joined us today. I hope you've got a couple of things to think about moving forward. The recording for this and also the text file of the content we covered will be available on the Eastern ACE website in the coming week, and also that text file is in the handouts section right now. For more conversations about technology and career development, you can join Jefferson University's Chris Mychek for an Eastern ACE webinar on September 15th about unpacking the AI hype. And you can also now register for October's Eastern ACE webinar, where Nitin Agrawal of Interstride and Aaron Bloomberg of Fragamen will be addressing how to advise international students during the current COVID crisis. So thank you again for joining us. Stay safe and good luck heading into the new semester. Thank you all.
And everyone follow me for ideas. You can always steal from me. I'm open to stealing.
Good.
Thanks, Elise.
Thank you.